Well, I have very high hopes for the Dangote Refinery. And the reason is because if you look at the budget of Nigeria, you see that 32.4% of the budget goes into under recovery for petroleum subsidy. Today, as we speak, over 70% of the budget, somewhere around 71.4%, if I'm not mistaken, goes for two items. Goes for subsidy payments and for debt servicing and refinancing of maturing debt. So only 28.6% of the budget in Nigeria today, as we speak, is left for any other business, which are the very critical things like defense, education, healthcare, etc. So one of the advantages of the Dangote Refinery, according to sections 205, subsections 1, sections 206, subsections 2 of the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021, is that you're going to finally have free market pricing, and you're going to have regulation on transfer pricing for any company who decides they want to compete with Dangote, which I don't think they can because of the 27% handling charge on landing costs for delivering PMS in Nigeria. And it's also very interesting because, following the embargo on Russian oil, before the February 24, 2022, Russia was supplying the European Union 1.7 million barrels of crude oil on a daily basis. And following the embargo of Russian oil and the removal of Russian banks from the SWIFT global system of financial communication that has 12,000 banks as members, you have the fact that Russia can no longer deliver crude oil feedstock to refineries in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in the UK, in Germany. And that's the reason why you saw that the price of PMS went from 165 naira per litre, it went to 195 naira per litre, because the price at which the Nigerian government was able to get in PMS in Nigeria based on the DSDP arrangement actually went up. You could also see that the price of diesel went up 300% over the intervening period, because those refineries in Europe that Nigerian off-takers were getting PMS from and diesel were struggling to get feedstock from Russia, which they usually get. So with the Dangote Refinery, I expect that at full capacity utilization, you're going to see a daily output for PMS of somewhere around maybe 47 to 48 million liters of PMS. You're also going to see that the true north for the consumption of PMS on a daily basis, contrary to what the government reports that we consume, is actually not 66 million liters of PMS daily. I maintain my stance that Nigeria does not consume up to 50 million liters of PMS on a daily basis. And if
the Dangote Refinery truly is a game changer for the Nigerian economy. And I dare to say that perhaps nothing in the last 10 years would have as much impact on the Nigerian economy as this refinery would. And I adjure you to pay keen attention to what this economist has to say, because I can guarantee that you'll hear what you've never heard before. There's a lot of potential that this refinery can afford the Nigerian economy.
And if the government has an alternate view on this, they should provide empirical evidence to back the fact that Nigeria consumes more than 50 million liters of PMS, because like 8 years ago, the government was reporting 34 million liters. So how can you tell us that between 2015 and 2023, that number went up from 34 million liters to 66 million liters, and Nigeria is practically having to pay 7 trillion naira in subsidy payments, which is about 32.4% of its budget. So I expect that the refinery is going to change fiscal and monetary policy in Nigeria, because the pressure to borrow money to pay PMS subsidy in contravention of sections 45 to 49 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007 will stop. The downside, though, is that with the deregulation of petrol prices in Nigeria and introduction of free market conditions, you're going to have a situation where the price of a liter of PMS is going to go up. In sub-Saharan Africa, to interest you to note, the price of a liter of PMS is actually between $1.10 and $1.29 per liter. Now, there is a 27% handling charge for bringing PMS into Nigeria. So if you have the price go according to free market conditions and it gets to that level, you're going to see a situation where the only net benefit of the Dangote refinery coming on stream is the removal of that 27% handling charge. And of course, the central bank is not going to be providing anybody who decides to import with dollar at the official market. In fact, the central bank has started a systematic devaluation of the naira. It's revised the airline in the FX rate, for example, to 634, and is systematically devaluing the naira. And I expect that will continue, and the central bank will announce that they've changed their exchange rate regime from a fixed peg to a floating model. So there are advantages, but also I see that there are going to be some downsides to the price, the increase of price, and it's going to affect inflation. But I expect that the debt situation of Nigeria is going to improve and is going to change the direction of monetary policy going forward. Dangote Refinery, I mean.
Okay, so I guess it's also important to know, is Dangote compelled to sell all his products to Nigeria? Because Dangote is obviously a business. I'm sure there are loans involved. I do know, I think they had a commercial paper or something like that recently. So are they compelled to sell all of their products to Nigeria? And how do they run this as a business? It's not a welfare company. It's a business that needs to take care of its capital and running costs, salaries, and of course, make profits.
Well, he's not compelled to sell. The fact that NNPC holds a 20% stake in the refinery and sits on the board, and NNPC has said it's going to provide crude oil feedstock that's Bonny Light through barges that will buy to be sent through barges from the Niger Delta to Lekki. What the NNPC has not come out to say expressly in an official statement is if that crude oil feedstock will be provided to Dangote in dollars or naira. That will determine whether he's going to sell his products, all of his products in Nigeria. But it's also worth mentioning that, look, every barrel of crude oil gives you about 170 liters of derivatives. PMS is only 43% of that 170 liters, right? You have other derivatives like automotive gasoline oil, AGO, you have aviation turbine kerosene, ATK, which is used for jet engines. You also have jet A1. So there's jet A1, then there's ATK. You have derivatives like DPK, dual purpose kerosene. You have non-transportation fuels like heavy marine oil. You have petroleum coke, which is used to make plastics. Most of the canned drinks you take, the container is actually made from petroleum coke, which is the reason why sometimes when the climate activists come and talk about phasing out crude oil, I wonder if they understand that there are other uses of crude oil outside of carbon fuels like PMS and diesel and the likes of them. So you have a situation, for example, where most of the ships that come to Nigeria will not need to, most of the ships that are not powered by LNG, because nowadays you have ships that are powered by both heavy marine fuel and LNG. Most of them are dual hybrid powered, and they have storage on the ships. So when they come, they usually don't have any source for heavy marine oil fuel in Nigeria, so they have to use the storage they have and then sail back. Most of the ships that come to Nigeria will now have heavy marine fuel oil from the Dangote refinery to be able to transport themselves back. So it's a market for him. So you have several other derivatives. You have lubricants also. In fact, one of the reasons why lubricant price has been so expensive and has gone up, I remember in 2021 when our farm was doing land development, we're practically buying 25 kg of lubricants to power the bulldozer on a weekly basis. Remember, it's about 35,000 naira for 25 kg. It's gone up seriously. With Dangote Refinery coming on stream and in producing lubricants, you're going to have a situation where the prices will come down because of the cost of landing lubricants in Nigeria because of the exchange rates. So there are several other derivatives outside of just PMS, AGO, aviation fuel, Jet A1, ATK, or aviation turbine kerosene that he's going to be selling. But for PMS especially, the decision to sell PMS in Nigeria, all of it depends on if he does his cost-benefit analysis and see his foreign exchange, you see the exchange rate policy that the government has. If government can float the exchange rates, he sees that it's actually going to profit his dollar loans because he has dollar loans that he has to pay. And the fact that there's been distortion in the FX market was a reason why Dangote decided to go to the debt capital markets to raise about 300 billion naira in 2022 to finish the refinery. I expect that he's going to have a right of first refusal. NNPC has a right of first refusal to get 20% of what he produces on a daily basis, especially for PMS, to Nigeria. And whatever agreements NNPC and Dangote, the board of the refinery, reaches on the remaining 80% will depend on negotiating power. But the answer to your question is he's not obligated to sell all of what he produces to Nigeria. But it's also worth mentioning that PMS is one of about 9 or 10 different derivatives that he's going to be producing. And it's also worth mentioning, I'll explain something to you that is quite unique. The Dangote refinery has a Nelson Complexity Index of 10.5, which is the second highest in the world, outside of the refinery that is owned by Reliance Industries in India. Now, the next Nelson Complexity Index typically tells you how sophisticated the refinery is and the ability of a refinery to break those hydrocarbons of the petroleum crude oil feedstock into complex derivatives. Now, you notice that for modular refineries, they are unable to produce PMS. They produce naphtha. Naphtha is the base for PMS. And the reason is because they don't have coking units that can break those hydrocarbons into secondary and tertiary derivatives. The Dangote refinery has. The fact that he has, it means that he's going to be producing PMS, AGO, ATK, Jet A1, DPK, lubricants, petroleum coke. In fact, bitumen binders. Nigeria, last year, Nigeria spent nearly 400 billion naira importing bitumen binders or asphalt, which is used for road construction. So the fact that Dangote has come on and at full capacity is going to be doing about 3.3 million liters of bitumen binders on a daily basis is going to impact on the cost of road construction per kilometer in Nigeria. And Nigeria has about 120 kilometers of roads to construct.
Wow, that was a really, really interesting interview. And for those of us who stuck through the entire length of the interview, I'm sure that we had more than we even bargained for. So some highlights that we could pick from this video was the fact that contrary to popular opinions, even I did not know. Okay, PMS is just 45% of crude oil derivative. There are a lot of crude oil derivatives that have already been highlighted, but PMS, would account for 45%. That means for a Dangote refinery that has a production capacity of 650,000 barrels per day, he is going to produce roughly 45 million liters of PMS on a daily basis. Okay, 45 million liters of petrol. And by this time, at full capacity, other refineries would have come online to make sure that the country is served its daily requirement of crude oil. Another thing that really caught my attention was the NLC, that is the Nelson Complexity Index. The fact that Nigeria had the second highest Nelson Complexity Index is a big one for the quality of petrol that will be produced both for Nigerian consumers and for even the export market. Something else we also saw was the bitumen binders or the asphalt. So if Nigeria imports so much asphalt to do road construction, it's going to save us the cost of actually constructing or rehabilitating roads in the long term, and it's even going to speed up the rate at which our roads are being constructed and rehabilitated. As we already heard, it's going to ease pressure on the naira, as the pressure on the naira is paramount because of the amount of money we used to import refined petroleum products, which will no longer be in the next 2 years. In fact, by 2024, we'll no longer be importing refined petroleum products into this country. And then we also saw that there are differences between light crude and heavy crude, and that light crude has less derivatives compared to heavy crude, and Nigeria has a lot of light crude oil compared to heavy crude oil, meaning that we cannot expect so much from refining Nigeria's crude oil if you want to refine heavy crude oil. So this truly was a power-packed session. I enjoyed it. I'm sure you did. So I adore that you liked this video, you share it to people who are interested, and you subscribe to this channel if you have not. Please, we have opened new handles on Facebook. So please, our Facebook handle is Edikan Obot. So check for Edikan Obot on Facebook, and like the page and follow us on Facebook Follow us on Instagram at idikanobot. If you like our Twitter and like our videos, follow us on Twitter at idikanobot. So that's my name and that's my handles over on social media. While on YouTube we are Isaaca News. We're trying to spread our tentacles across the social media world in order to spread this message of hope, to Nigerians and to Africans, all around the world. So I'm happy that you stuck with me this far. I'm your host, Idikanobot. This is Isaaca News. Until we see again, Godspeed.